Hey everybody, John Walworth here. I spend a lot of time in Africa, but it's pretty rare that I get to go do what the tourists do. Well, recently I had the opportunity to take my daughter-in-law to Ethiopia. We were there to photograph the tribes of the Omo Valley, but on the way in, we spent some time on Chemo Lake near Arba Minch. We took a boat out on the lake to photograph some of the wildlife, including the famous crocodiles of the lake. Now, I've seen Chamo Lake from a distance many times, but this was the first time I was actually able to get out onto the lake. Chamo Lake has been expanding for a number of years now, so we had to float through vast areas of dead trees that were once forest.
You having a good time? Glad you came? Yeah.
Almost as soon as we headed out onto the lake, we spotted some eagles perched in the trees. These may look like bald eagles, but they are in fact African fish eagles. They're a little more lightly built than a bald eagle, but pretty much look the same other than that. We were able to get really close to some of these as they didn't seem bothered by the boat. I wanted to see both hippos and crocodiles, but I was told that since the lake was so high, most of the hippos had moved into the areas of dead trees on the lake and were really hard to spot. As we approached a small island on the lake, I spotted my first crocodile. Sliding in. Then we spotted the largest crocodile I'd ever seen. I'd estimate it to be about 6 meters long. Far longer though, more slightly built than any alligator I'd ever seen back in South Carolina. It just drifted along the surface of the water, only occasionally propelling itself with its tail. We followed it for a bit until it sunk beneath the surface. Though seeing crocodiles was exciting, documenting people is really my passion. In the several times I'd driven past Chamo Lake, I'd seen fishermen on small boats fishing out in these croc-infested waters, and I was curious if it would be possible to film them. As I would find out many times on this trip, our guide Minalu was extremely well connected, and he knew of a small island where some of the fishermen lived. He even knew one of them. So we boated out to the island, and after negotiating a small fee to film them, we spent some time with these fishermen. I was surprised to find out that they fish not from small boats as I thought, but from small rafts of logs that barely keep them out of the water and away from the crocodiles. We spent some time filming one of the fishermen paddling, then spent a bit of time on the island. They had just brought in a catch for that day, including a very large Nile perch, and they were just getting ready to cut it up.
Wow. That is a fish.
It was really interesting to see the simple life they spend on this island, fishing in the early morning, then processing their catch to make a small living for their families. There were also a couple of extremely fat, feral cats that had profited from their labors. Wildlife is great, but I really like being able to take part in people's lives, even if it's briefly, and see how they live. Even among people that live very different lives from me, there are still common things we all find important, whether that's family, legacy, taking joy in the things that you're good at. We can all find commonality among us. The fishermen were extremely interesting to visit, and thanks to our guide, we had access to places and people we never would have seen otherwise. I've been to Ethiopia many times now, and I always discover something new when I go. Ethiopia is an incredibly diverse country, and you'll never run out of things to see. If you enjoyed this video or found it interesting, please give us a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and tell us in the comments what you liked or didn't like. Until next time, this is John Woolworth.